A couple of them.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canon City School Board Candidates Legislative Forum. Better turn my cell phone off, and maybe you guys ought to as well. My name is Robert Hutchison, and I go by Hutch. And I am the chairman of the Legislative Forum for the Chamber of Commerce, so I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank the Canon City Daily Record, and of course the City of Canon City, and all of you for expressing your interest in the position. Also, I want to introduce Michael Alcala. Yeah, Michael, sorry about that. He's the editor of the Canyon Daily Record, and his sidekick, Sarah Rose, who is the reporter. The rules of our forum we'll ask a lot of questions that we want to know from all of you. And so we'll start with Beth on one question, and then we'll start with Mary Pat on the other. And that way there's equal time for all of you to think of your razor-sharp answer. Right on. This is our time. We have 2 minutes for you per answer. And the yellow light would be one that you'd want to look at to see it's time to kind of wrap up your question. And then when the red light comes on, there's a little sound, and then we'll move on to the next candidate. So we are going to have some individual questions, but we'll start with questions for everybody. So Beth, we'll start with you. But first of all, we want to get to know you. So just and there's no time limit on this, just give us a minute or two blurb of who you are and your family and how long in Canon City and interests and that type of thing.
Great. My name is Beth Gaffney, and I am a native Canon City girl. I loved growing up here and didn't ever consider really moving away. I started my career here and finished my career here. I have the best husband in the world. Sorry, ladies. The best husband in the world. 3 children and 4 beautiful, wonderful grandchildren that I retired recently from the school district, actually about 3 years ago, and going on 4. And I retired so that I could spend time with both my grandchildren and my parents. My parents are still here. They were business folks here in town, so I'm very invested in our community and have a great love for our schools and our kids. Anybody who knows me or who has ever worked with me through the schools knows that I have no qualms about saying, you know, I love our kids. And so I I want to make a difference for them, and I feel like I was able to a little bit as a teacher and a principal, and I'm hoping that I'll have the opportunity to make a difference for them as a board member.
Right on. Thank you, Beth. Bob?
I am Bob Martin. When I was working, I was known by a lot of other different names, as I explained to Hutch. We've lived in Canon City about 17 years. I've got 30 years experience in education. I spent 17 years in the central office as a superintendent. I'm an English teacher by trade, a football coach by default. I had 4 years after I retired here in Colorado as school administrator, superintendent. My undergraduate degree is from University of Nebraska, a master's degree there, and another degree from Fort Hays State University in Kansas. Most of my career was spent in Kansas. However, I did spend some time in New Mexico and a little time in Nebraska. As a football coach, I didn't get to spend much time in the English classroom, but that was where my heart was. I was a very good English student. But when I realized that I could get a degree in English, it was a lot easier than some of the other things, so I just stayed with English, and I got to spend some time in the classroom teaching English. And I'm a grammar nut. If you can't diagram a sentence, then I don't think that it's the correct sentence. Anyway, I coach football at all levels except the pros. I taught school at all levels, including college. And when we moved here, I didn't want to go to work again, but ended up doing a little bit of work. And I enjoy being here. We've made a lot of friends here, and I'm real interested in what's going on in the school system. I just kind of watch it from afar. And I think they are doing some things here that are really good. I always want to be part of a winner, and I think that's what they are.
Thank you, Bob. Michael?
Thank you, Hutch.
Yeah.
I want to call you Hutchinson, but it's Hutch, right?
Right.
My name is Michael Neer. I've been in the Canyon schools for 48 years in just about every role you can imagine. I was president of the school board. I was on the school board for 8 years. I've been, like I said, in education for 48 years. I've taught mostly at the elementary level. I have some experience teaching night school at the penitentiary. That was an interesting experience. I was at Washington School for 15 years. When Beth went through Washington School, I was there, so I'm pretty ancient. but I was 19 years at Skyline School, and for the last 12 years, I've been a substitute teacher in the Canyon Public Schools. In my own personal life, I've been married to my wife, Judy, for 46 years. I'm so thankful for that. She's a wonderful person. I have two kids. One lives here in Canyon, and another lives in Pueblo West. I have 6 grandchildren. I have a wonderful daughter-in-law and son-in-law. I love them very dearly. Part of my experience of wanting to be back on the board again is many of the things that we're doing now, we started as I was getting off. Because when I first got on the Canon City School Board, the worst recession that we've had since the Great Depression was just starting to take hold. And so for about the first 5 years I was on the board, most of our activity was trying to make sure that none of the cuts reached the classroom. And unfortunately, we did close 2 schools. And that, I think, has worked out in the long run, but very difficult for several years. As my other experience involves some volunteer work. In between when I retired as a regular classroom teacher, I started doing volunteer work with Meals on Wheels. I did victims advocacy, and I also continued on the library board, which I was on when I was a city councilman. I was on in 1995, I ran for city council and did not get on, but I was on the planning commission, and when another city councilman left, I applied for the job and got it, and I won 2 terms after that. I was responsible on city council when I first started for doing a Canyon cable show at the Humane Shelter, and we would bring dogs and cats out, and I really enjoyed that. I was chairman of the Public Works for one term, and I was chairman of the general government for 2 terms. I was mayor pro tem of Canyon City from 2005 to 2004 to 2006. I think that one of the highlights of my retirement, besides subbing and seeing the grandchildren of some of the kids I had in 1st and 2nd grade, are that I was on the committee to pass the mill and bond in 2017. And in my 48 years in Canyon City, it's been very rare that we've passed an issue. So I was very proud of that. We worked very hard for that.
Thank you,
I say
Michael.
we, just all the people involved. Thank you very much, Hutch.
You bet. Robin?
Thank you, Hutch. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. Out of college, I worked for Westinghouse Elevator for a while as a financial manager, and then I got into both state and municipal tax auditing. Can you guys not hear me?
Maybe a little.
I'm getting gesturing in the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the tax auditing gig, I got married and ended up in post-secondary education at Texas A&M and University of Houston. So I manage finance departments there, as well as created and maintained the budgets of both those universities. So when I moved to Canyon City, there weren't any large universities for me to work at, so I got my master's in education and worked in the district for about 9.5 years. I wore an attendance clerk's hat for a while. I worked a little bit in the admin office. I did my student teaching at Mountain View Core Knowledge, opened the new Harrison School, middle school mathematics, and then I taught GED classes at Territorial Prison, and then decided that I wanted to go back into accounting. So I went over to the Pueblo Community College campus and managed their accounts receivable function for all 4 campuses. And then when I retired from that, one would not think that I'm retired, I taught a full class load at PCC at the Fremont campus here in town, and opened a real estate business. So I'm a realtor here in town. I've been doing that for 5 years. And what I realized through the course of all that was I missed the kids at Canon City Schools. I missed being a part of that. The other thing that I've done a lot of in the community is be on various boards. I was on the Rec District Board. I was on the Real Estate Board. I'm president of the Fremont Center for the Arts Board, and I was appointed to the school board a year ago. So it's provided me with a great amount of joy to make a difference in these kids' lives, and I'm committed to continuing that.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Mary Pat?
Thanks, Hutch.
You bet.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids who all attended and graduated from public schools in Colorado. My oldest, Nick, is married, and he's the father of my beautiful, smart granddaughter, Lily. And he's currently a PhD candidate at St. Louis University. My other son, Chris, is a junior at Metro State University in Denver, and he's studying music. And my youngest, Jenny, is a sophomore at UCCS, and she's majoring in economics. So I grew up in a small town in southern Illinois, a lot like Canyon City, but less than half the size. And after graduating high school, I attended the University of Notre Dame and earned my bachelor's degree in accounting. After I graduated, I moved to Chicago because that was the place to be when you were young and single. So I lived there for a couple years and had my first job out of college there. And then moved to the Denver area because that's where most of my family lives, and they still live there. And once we started having kids, for 20 years, I worked from home so I could be there and raise my kids. And 3 years ago, Jenny and I moved here to Canyon City, and I just felt immediately at home. People were so welcoming, and I love it here. And this is where I plan to stay for the rest of my life. I work, right now I work at the business office for DOC.
Thank you, Mary Pat. You know, I think people in Colorado tend to be a little friendlier because so many of us are not originally from Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I figured out the secret to a long marriage by Michael because you stay busy for 46 years, right? Yep. So Mary Pat, let's start with you for a question that all of us will answer, all of you will answer. And number one, and we heard a little bit of this coming from each of you. You've got 2 minutes to answer, and you certainly don't have to take the 2 minutes. You're not obligated. But what would be your main motivation for being on the board?
Okay, well, as a parent, I know how valuable and important it is for kids to receive a quality education. And it doesn't matter if your child is going on to college or trade school or wants to be an auto mechanic. And by the way, they're probably going to make more than the average kid getting out of college these days. So, but the fact is, no matter what path your child takes, a quality education sets them up for success. I work a lot with young parents at work, and when we're talking around the water cooler, so to speak, the subject often comes up about their kids and the challenges they face in school. And I am a person of action, and I don't just sit around and talk about stuff, and I just like to do things about things. And I realized that if I was on the school board, I could very likely make a difference in the lives of the parents and their children. And that's why I'm running for Canon City School Board.
Right on. Thank you. Hey, Michael, can we make the yellow turn on at 30 seconds versus a minute, or is that? Or, okay, well, we'll just let everybody know when the yellow comes on, you still have a minute to wrap up your thoughts. So, Robin, same question?
So I grew up in an educational family, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that education is the lifeblood of a community, and I love Canon City. And I've been here almost 20 years, and the majority of what I've done since I moved here, my children were little. I had a preschooler and a second grader when I moved here. So I rapidly got involved on the playground and those sorts of things. And what I realized very quickly is this school district had a lot of room for growth. And what's been happening here in the last 4 years, 6 years, is just exponential growth. There's phenomenal things going on here. And it's so exciting for me to actually be a part of that. It's important work, and it's phenomenal what's happening here with our kids and our schools. Schools across the state are standing up and looking at us and wondering, how are you doing that with limited resources? And they're coming down here to see what we're doing, and it takes my breath away when I start talking about all the great things going on. So I'm excited to be part of that and make a difference in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael, what motivates you?
Thank you, Hutch. One of the things I've always believed in is a quote that I saw one time: to give back what you can, where you can, with what you have. And what I have is a vast experience of working with the Canon City school kids, the Canon City community. And one of the things that I've always, besides just community service, I look around and I think, what can I do? How can I make things better? And I think the best way I can serve my community is what I know. Besides city government, I do know pretty much how Canon City schools operate. And I've been out of it 4 years, and there's a lot I probably need to catch up on. But the thing that, and I will say at this time, that Robin is absolutely right. We are doing so much with the limited resources we have. We have like 100 kids that are in internships, in business partnerships around the community and in Florence. We have more businesses asking for kids than we have kids. We've got school systems all over the state coming to find out how we're doing this. And we're doing some amazing things with Pueblo Community College. Last year, the seniors at Canon City High School had 600 hours of credit that they had earned when they graduated. This is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I love being a part of it. I love the kids. I've had 3 generations of the kids, and I'm still teaching. I just love the kids, and and at one time, 13 of the teachers in this district were kids I had in first grade, and 2 of the administrators were. I really believe in it. Thank you.
You're welcome, but you're not old. Bob, what motivates you?
What motivates me?
For school board.
Oh, well, I've been in education over 30 years, and my entire life has been devoted to education. And had it not been for education, I'd probably be in Fremont County, but not where I am right now. They have 13 facilities out there that I probably would have been in, one of them. I'm kid-oriented, and when kids succeed, educators succeed. Believe it or not, I have watched them. In 30 years that I spent in education, I've had over 50 kids go to college. Personally had an impact on these kids. Some of them come back to see me and tell me I owe them money or something, but I'm really motivated to work with kids. It's about kids. This job is about kids. That's all it amounts to. So my motivation is to work with kids. And this community's gonna grow, and there's gonna be more kids coming. So the stronger the school system is, the better quality of people we'll have coming here.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Robin, do you know if the demographics have changed a lot here in the last 10 years or so? Are there a lot more younger people today than there were 10 or 20 years ago? Just a curious
I would say
question
more
here.
so than 10 or 20 years ago. I think there's still a lot of folks moving here from the Front Range that are retirees because we've got, it's still affordable here, the climate's fantastic. But I think with more and more tech start kind of companies coming here and a lot of innovation in terms of new companies, because, historically we've had 75% of the people living here have government jobs.
Okay.
And what's beginning to change dramatically, in my opinion, is the mix of other business opportunities.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beth, have you had enough time to think about your motivation?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let us know.
Obviously, kids motivate me. I, over my 29-year career here, have taught in the elementary schools. I taught gifted ed in almost every school in the district except for Mountain View and CCMS. And then, of course, working as a principal or as a gifted director and seeing sort of a district-wide perspective of our schools and the wonderful things that go on in every school. And then serving as a principal and understanding the challenges of principals, administrators, and the district view as a whole. I want to support what's going on here. I want to support teachers and families and kids, and I think with my experience and with what's the big changes that are going on right now with the Core 4 and with student-empowered learning and pathways at the high school and tech, our blended learning situation, it's exciting, and that motivates me. And so I want to continue to support all of the good work that's going on.
What do you think is the most important responsibility of the school board, Beth?
The most important responsibility of the school board is to ensure that everything that's decided or brought up is in the best interest of kids. We need to make sure that the policies that we're looking at, the policies we're changing, that all of it points to what's going to be best for kids. And when I say that, I mean we need to not just look at school as school. I think sometimes we see, oh, this is what happens in school. Learning is life, and life is learning. And so as a school board, our job is to make sure that kids come away from our system being lifelong learners, being successful in whatever career they choose. And so if we can set up policies and bring initiatives and find grants to support a lifelong learner and someone who will contribute to our society, then that is our goal.
Okay. Anybody have a feeling on that one way or the other? What the most important part of the school board is? The most important responsibility? Do you have Yeah, Mary Pat, go ahead.
I believe that the school board and the school district, the most important responsibility is educating the kids, turning them into successful adults. What the school board and the school district should not be doing is acting as substitute parents, okay? Parents know what's best for their kids. The schools don't know what's best for the kids, and that needs to be understood. People, I think a school board needs to understand that. I'm not an educator, okay? I'm looking at this simply through the eyes of a parent, and I think the school board needs someone like me on there who's going to look at it all with fresh eyes.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought on that?
So I feel like, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mike.
He'll be
No
next.
problem.
You can go next.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So education is changing. It's become incredibly dynamic. And, you know, I think it's really important that we teach our kids 21st century skills so that they can compete in an ever-changing global economy. And what some of the great things that we've been doing at the district is we've developed a portrait of a graduate. And there's 6 traits that we believe are equally, if not more important, to the whole child, the whole person as they graduate. And those skills and traits, it's about communication, it's about tenacity, it's about flexibility, it's about all of those life skills that you need to be successful in the ever-changing environment of employment after education. So we're just doing phenomenal things, and not to discount parenting, because, you know, a healthy child has a great parenting structure in home life, but they also have this great guidance and vision through the school district.
Okay. Michael, I know you have something to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin.
Sorry, Michael.
No problem. One of the things I used to send home with parents when I taught 1st and 2nd grade, I would say to them, you are your child's first and best teacher. And they are. There are things that parents struggle with, and school districts in partnership with the parents help. Some parents have a hard time, especially when they have younger boys and girls coming up. They aren't sure what to do to help their child, and that's where the partnership with the school system is so important. And I think the other thing that's really important for the school district is working with the superintendent, because the school board is not in charge of the 500 or so employees of the school district. We have 228 support professionals, which are bus drivers and kitchen personnel and paraprofessionals and health techs. These people are phenomenal. We don't go into a building and tell them what to do or how to do it. That's the job of the superintendent. So working with the superintendent, following state laws, following district policy, that's really important. And making good policy that fits the community in now and into the future.
Thank you. Bob, any?
They were reading stuff that I had written down.
Okay. All right. All right. I want to show you guys something. This is the house key, and that was held by a 8th grader in junior high that came out into a knife, just a little knife and a little slot. You could move that, and the 8th grader was caught with it and was removed from school for 3 or 4 days. Do you think that's proper, excessive? What do you think? I started with, Mary Beth.
I think it's absolutely absurd that there is no discretion in something like this. There's no way that that tiny little knife could have hurt someone, and I'm assuming he wasn't threatening anyone.
Correct.
Some other kid just told on him, right?
Right.
Well, if I was the principal, I would have called him in, said, you know what, Bobby, you can't have that here. So don't bring it to school again. Give it to me until the end of the day, and you can take it home, and that would be that.
Okay. Robin?
I believe that kids are given student handbooks at the beginning of the year, and that I haven't read one in several years. I'm sorry, George Welsh. I think I got it in my email, but I didn't read through the whole thing. But there's precautionary measures in there about bringing things that can harm others to school. And I think, I agree with Mary Pat that life isn't black and white, but I think that the kids and the parents receive those handbooks at the beginning of every school year, and they should be aware that knives and guns and those sorts of things, regardless of size, aren't permissible at school. And I do think that you could hurt someone with, what is it, a 2-inch knife? And there's also a rule about switchblades. Did it slip out, or was it a button, or? Regardless, I believe that there's some pretty stringent state or school policies about bringing those sorts of items to school. So the students and the parents should have been aware of that.
Okay.
A 3-day suspension, I don't really feel that that's excessive.
You do believe it's excessive?
I don't really feel that
You-
that's
you don't believe it
excessive,
is,
because
okay.
I think we need to protect our kids, and those things can be harmful. It's like you get suspended if you punch somebody in the face. It's still an item that can cause some harm. I do think that we have to be cautious about those sorts of things.
Okay. Michael?
Well, having been in the classroom for as long as I have, I've had incidents where children have produced some weapons out of the things you can't believe. A pencil can be a weapon. You have to use common sense, but you also have to follow school procedures. We have procedures and policies in place, and we follow state law. And we also have devoted a tremendous amount of effort in the Safe Schools program. We have lockdown procedures, we have lockout procedures, we have tried to look at the problem from every angle. And when you see the horrendous things that have happened at some of the schools, it worries you. Now, as to addressing whether a child should be suspended for an incident where he had a weapon or made a weapon and then used it or was threatening to use it, school policy is you let the principal know, and the principal and the teacher and the parents are part of what happens from then on. But some of it is already mandated, that you have to suspend a kid if he has a weapon and tries to use it or threatens another kid with it.
Okay.
He didn't try to use it. That's what Hutch said. So what?
Hey, Mary Pat, let me move on, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Bob?
It's a law. You can't bring weapons to school. A knife is a weapon. And
Plain and simple.
it's pretty clear cut. There's a
Okay.
stop sign in the middle of the desert. It says stop, you stop, whether anybody's there to see it or not. It's true.
Into the mic, please. Would everyone please speak into the mic?
Thank you.
I'm sorry. There are policies in place for this thing. There are federal laws, and they need to be adhered to. Now, I think it's at the discretion of you can give in-school suspension and those sort of things. Parent needs to be involved in this. Parents as guilty as the child. Parents should know what their children bring to school. So when an individual brings a weapon to school of any kind, they need to be punished for it, regardless of age. The parent should know. We just talked about parents are the biggest educators of the children. They need to know what their children are doing.
Thank you. Beth?
So this student was an 8th grader,
He was.
and I
Yep.
worked with 8th grade students. They're pretty savvy. They know the difference between right and wrong, and they know how to push buttons, and they know what they're doing. They're big kids, almost pre-adults. If you would have said that was a kindergartner, I would say, oh, that might be a little rough.
Yeah.
If you're telling me it's an 8th grader who intentionally brought it to school and was showing kids, hey, look, I have this weapon, there's intent there. And so, first of all, I think what would be most important, obviously you have to follow district policy, whatever that is. And then you need to figure out what's going on with this kid that he feels like he needs to bring this weapon to school. What's happening there? And how can we work to help that kid? And how can we partner with parents so that we can support him so he's making better choices and healthier choices?
Okay. Thank you, Beth. So do you think you are a representative of the community, or are you a representative of the school system? What do you think, Beth?
Well, both.
Okay.
Our community and our school system right now, we're very fortunate because I think the two are so intertwined. The district and the community have been working together in several capacities. I know that through the Pathways program and through some mentorships, we're working with community members for kids to have real-world experiences. So I think that when you say, are you one or the other, you really can't be, because we all work together to make our community and our schools better places. So, yes, of course, we represent the community. We're supposed to be listeners. We're supposed to know what's going on in our community and how our community can support us, and vice versa. We need to know what's going on in our schools. We need to be able to listen to teachers and families and kids, and we need to figure out how our schools can support our community. So really, we represent both.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought on that, different than Beth?
I'm going to piggyback on what Beth said. So not only are we, so what's really exciting about some of the things that these folks have already touched on is the fact that we have all these businesses and stakeholders in the community that are offering internships and apprentices for kids.
Yeah.
Let me work on that. I don't like microphones. That's probably what you're hearing or not hearing. So we're one of a handful of schools in the state that's a P-Tech school, which is Pathways in Technology, early college, high school. So what that means is that whole business partnership. And what's happened recently is we got a grant from the Gates Foundation to look into attracting and retaining quality educators. And what's happened through that process, it's Civic Canopy, what's happened through that process is we've realized that this is a community-wide effort. It's with hospitals, police department, fire department. Everybody's having a fairly difficult time attracting and retaining quality employees. So what's happened through that process is we've received grant money, seed money from the Gates Foundation to help our high school teachers get master's degrees so they can teach concurrent enrollment classes. So it's just one more avenue for our high school kids to get free college credit. They can graduate from high school with associate degrees at no charge to them. They can graduate with certificates in auto mechanics, all sorts of different things. So it's just a phenomenal program that's going on, and there's just so much happening in the community that Beth is right. We're just completely intertwined as representatives for the community and the school district because it's an important partnership.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Michael, or?
Yeah, I'd like to just, I know what I'm going to say sounds like a repeat of what you've heard, but today, the Supreme Court of the state of Colorado came to our high school and had a session. That's community working with the school system. 100 internships of businesses in Florence and Canyon. That's working with the community. As Robin stated, kids being able, through Pueblo Community College, to go into pathways other than just a traditional college situation is community service. And I believe that our community is one of the best in the state. I really do. I just love Canyon City. I think that working with the people that we have now and attracting and keeping more good teachers is important also. And with what we're doing, I think we're going to do it. I think it's really important that the people that come here feel the heart of the community. We've got some very charitable organizations and wonderful nonprofits, and the school district works with them. So I hope I gave you some examples of what I know
You bet.
is the school-community relationship.
Yeah, I think I heard the other day we have like 160 nonprofits in Canyon. Might even be a little more. Bob, any different view than what we've heard? Basically, both you're a representative of the community and you're a representative of the board.
Well, it's important that you
Yeah, lean up.
it's important that you realize that you are a part of the community and you're part of the school system too. You're kind of a go-between. So the community needs to know what's going on in the schools because you have a vested interest. It's called tax dollars. So that's a vested interest in what you have. And so the school board and the schools and the community should work very closely. Like Mike says, there's a lot of things going on between the school and the community, and it's very important. And the public sees that, and it's important that we continue those things.
Okay. All right, each of you are going to get a topic. Did you have a thought?
Can I answer that?
Well, we're not really doing a debate, but if you want to take.
I didn't get a chance to answer the question.
Yeah, you can take a little time in the next question.
Okay.
To make a comment on that.
Sure.
But our role in teaching children in the school system, the topics of sex education, why don't you take that, Mary Pat? Cyber safety for you, Robin. Sexually transmitted diseases or infections for you, Michael. Wellness for you, Bob. And bullying for you, Beth. So you each have a topic, and what role do you think the school should play in that topic that you've been assigned? So, Mary
Me
Pat, go
first?
ahead.
I believe that the role of the schools as far as teaching sex ed should be teaching biology. There are other subjects that I think the schools should broach. Healthy relationships and such. But I think that sex ed in the schools has gone too far. Especially with House Bill 1132 passing, which is comprehensive sex education.
Too far in the age or too far in the information?
In the graphicness. I object to any graphic sexual education in the schools. I don't see why our schools would be teaching about sex acts. And I understand that you need to teach kids to be safe, but if it was me, you've got two choices under this comprehensive sex ed bill, okay? You can either teach the whole gamut, or you can't teach sex ed, okay? And I would be happy if the only thing that was taught was biology, because I think the rest, the values, should be taught by the parents.
Okay. All right. Will all of you commit to staying after this is over a few minutes so the public can greet you and ask a question or two? Will that work?
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, Robin, cyber safety.
I am not a techie.
And lean forward, please.
So I feel that kids these days with social media can be bullied, and that's, I guess, where I'm going to go with this question, because I'm not a technology person in terms of cybersecurity and those sorts of things. But, you know, our school district has committed in one of our core 4 to be very conscious of our student population's social and emotional needs. And so what's happened is we have a BIMAS test that checks in with where they are emotionally and those sorts of things. And I feel that social media plays a big part with the whole bullying thing, and we've been pretty in tune with that. And I also believe that with our new one-to-one devices, our technology that are in the hands of our 6th graders through our seniors, that we have to be more mindful of the usages of those devices and those sorts of things. Our IT department is very good at all of that, and we have folks that look at all of those postings that would indicate that a child is at risk of self-harm or harm of someone else. So we're very on board with all of those issues as much as possible. I'm personally not really good at any of that stuff, but we have great staff with the district and the police department and a lot of stakeholders in the community that are keeping
So
an eye on those
you
sorts
feel
of
like the
things.
protections are in place for
Yes.
cyber safety already?
Well, as much as possible. I mean, that's a whole new bailiwick that I'm not sure anybody, even probably federal employees, have a complete handle on. But I think our district is on top of it as much as possible.
Okay, all right. Michael, should the school be teaching about sexually transmitted diseases?
Should they or should they not?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
I believe also that the home is where kids receive most of their education and most of their values. But I've been in this business a long time, and I know that there's a lot of home lives out there where kids are learning so much on the internet and so much from different sources that we need to be on top of that. And should we teach about that at the high school level? You bet. Kids need to know what's dangerous and what isn't. They need to know how and when they can ask for help. And they need people that they can reach in the school system or in the medical community for that help. Because if we don't give them some type of idea what the dangers of STDs are, then they may not be getting it from anywhere else.
You wouldn't take that lower than high school?
You mean 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
Correct.
Yes, I would, because unfortunately, we see so much on the internet use, and kids get an idea that, oh, it's okay to do something, and it may not be. Oh, or this is what people are doing, and it may not be. We need more programs like the Growth and Development Program that I was part of when I was a regular classroom teacher. We would have kids come into our classes in the lower grades whose parents didn't want them and didn't want them to be part of that class. And so the Growth and Development class, they opted out on. And I think that's an option also.
Okay. Well, Bob, we know you coached a lot of football, and maybe that falls into the wellness category, but your topic is wellness, and what role should the school play for wellness?
First of all, I think that it's important that K through 12, that we talk about personal hygiene, and if that's what we're talking about, and injuries and those sorts of things. Every teacher's not going to be able to handle all situations. Even coaches don't handle all situations. You have a medical staff, and I'm not sure if they have nurses in the buildings here in Kansas. Where I was a superintendent, we had to have a nurse, a full-time nurse, in each building. If they have them here, then that's another source that the teachers can use and have some in-services with teachers and staff too as well regarding wellness, personal hygiene, and injuries and those sorts of things. Now, I don't know if I answered that question or not.
What about mental wellness? What should the school do there? If anything.
I'm not real sure how deep we should go with that. Again, we're back to, like Mary Pat says earlier, that a lot of this stuff should come from home, and Mike addressed that as well. So I think the school has some responsibility there while the children are there. After they're gone, you don't have any control over them anyway. But while they're there, I think we can do some things to keep them mentally healthy.
Okay. Well, Beth, you've had a year to think about your response, so what do you think about bullying and the school's responsibility?
Well, I think bullying has definitely increased in the last probably 15, 20 years. And I think maybe part of that is because we have not focused a lot on social emotional needs of kids. One of the most important ways that you can avoid bullying is to build a strong school culture where kids feel like they belong. They feel like it's a family. And not to say that school takes the place of family, it absolutely does not. But we all have to live in a community, and we all have to get along with other people. And so teaching each other, how do we get along with people? How do we appreciate someone who has a different point of view? And to define what bullying is. Sometimes kids, and I've seen this on the playground in elementary school, if somebody has the ball that they want to play with and they don't give them the ball they want to play with, they think they're being bullied. Well, that's not true at all. So some of it is what exactly, we need to teach kids what exactly is bullying. Mm-hmm. What do I do about it if it happens to me? How do I not be a victim? How can I have a strong enough self-esteem that I can stand up for myself? And how can I stand up for other kids if I see it?
Is there a current curriculum that supports the teaching of bullying? Do you know?
I think most of it comes through our school cultures. At least in my school, most of it came through that. And then just through teachers and principals having those conversations with kids who are at risk.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember, too, that oftentimes kids who are bullying sometimes have been bullied. Mm-hmm. And so they get that from somewhere. And so there are those conversations.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They probably get it from the people I work with. So. Is membership on the Board of Education compatible with your present position, Beth? Is being on the board going to work into your life, or?
Well, yes. I am committed to my family. Family is very important to me. And so I have spent, like I said before, time with my parents and time with my grandchildren. They are getting bigger, and soon both of the ones that are in town, all three of them will be in school. Mm-hmm. And so it opens up more time for me to donate to the school board.
Okay.
So yes.
Bob, fit well into your lifestyle and time?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, 30 years of education. So, yeah, it's just still part of my life. It's not anything that would get in the way of anything that I do, unless it's mowing the lawn.
Right.
Maybe I get some kids to mow my lawn.
Okay. All right. Michael?
Oh, absolutely. I know for sure what it takes to be on the board. I know for sure what it takes to hire a new superintendent. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of different meetings, a lot of listening. And being back on the board, for me, after being off of it for 4 years, it would be a lot of listening. Listening to learn, not listening to give my side of the story or my piece of the argument. So absolutely. And I taught elementary school. I was teaching first and second grade when I was on the city council. And when I was mayor pro tem, I was down here at City Hall probably 3 nights a week, sometimes 4 nights a week, and then sometimes on the weekends. I've got a pretty good idea what it takes. And yeah, it's worth it. Okay. To be a board member and to know what's going on, you do need to listen. And I'm willing to put that to work and listen and learn and help as much as I can.
Thank you. Robin, you've got time?
My real estate business is very flexible. George, Mr. Welsh, the superintendent, is really good at communicating well in advance when there's meetings or things that we need to attend or be involved in. And so it's quite easy to fit it into the schedule. If somebody wants to see a house or write a contract, I can just say, I'm not available that day, I'm available this day, or whatever. So yeah, I have total flexibility in my current employment.
Okay. And Mary Pat?
I do as well. I'm an empty nester, so, I don't have commitments in the evenings. I work 8 to 5, but the head of the department I work for, I've already talked to him, and he said that I can, that he'll be flexible, when I have to be away already, every other Monday, leaving work at 3 o'clock in order to be at the meetings. But, when other things are required, there shouldn't be any problem at
Okay.
all.
All right. I know there's at least 5 attributes that are required to be successful as a board member because there's 5 of you. So, Mary Pat, if you could give me one attribute that would be essential to be a good school board member.
The ability to listen to all sides of an argument, listen to parents, administrators, students, teachers, counselors, and be able to take all that in and make an informed decision
Okay?
when it's needed.
All right. Robin? Do you have a...
I think communication skills are paramount, and it's really important to not be closed-minded, especially with the amazing forward progress we're making in our district. I think we need to be aware of regional, state, and national, what's going on with education, not only with the Colorado Department of Education, but national trends in education. So, I think we just need to be well-informed and open communicators and agree to disagree on some things.
Okay. Michael?
Well, I already said what I said about listening, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But I think you honor the people that work for you. Not that they work for me, but they work for the Canon City School. And to honor the parents whose honor it is for us to teach their children. We have some incredibly good support personnel, professional support personnel that see our kids every day. That bus driver that gets those kids onto the bus and gets them safely to school. That kitchen worker and cook who make good meals for the kids every day. The people who make sure the kids get into the school safely and are in a safe environment when they're there. And the teachers who work tirelessly with the kids, like Todd Albright. I see Mr. Albright out there, and I think, how in the world does this guy be in so many places at once? How can he do all this? And I just am astounded. So just honoring the people that work for you, listening, and having good communication with the superintendent.
Okay. Bob?
I forget the question.
Respect?
Being a member of the team is very important. New board members need to come on, and Mike's been on the board before, so he knows. And we have a current board member now. It's very important to listen. The longer you listen, the more you learn. Until you get into the groove with the board, the current board, if you're a new board member. It's very important that you listen and learn. And you find out what the superintendent wants and how he's operating, and you support those things. So it's extremely important to be a good listener to begin with, and then learn what's going on, and then mesh with that team. You've got to be a team member. There's no I in team, but there is a me in team.
And Beth?
Well, I would agree with everything before. And the collaborative piece, I think, is super important, that we could all come in when there's a question about a policy or a question about something that's going on in the school district and listen to each other, but then also work together to come to a decision that we can all support for the good of kids. And I also think our job is really to oversee the superintendent, but I also think that it's important for us to really know what's going on in our schools. How do we know all of the great things that are going on if we're not involved, if we don't go in and appreciate those people who are helping in the kitchen, our paraprofessionals, our teachers, our principals. It's so important that we are aware and involved of what is actually happening in our schools and about the kinds of kids that come into our schools and leave our schools.
Okay. All right. You've all seen a lot of improvements in the school district with facilities the last couple of years. What, if any, facilities need to be either improved further, or what would you focus on that we need to step up to the plate and improve as far as the schools are concerned? And I lost track. Do I start with you, Beth?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I have to say, may I say, first of all, that I taught at Washington for 17 years. And one of my math lessons used to be to measure the crack in the wall for millimeters to see how much it would change when the weather got cold or warmer. So I'm so thankful that the new building is coming. And I just want to thank the current board and our community for supporting us, because those buildings needed change, and our kids will be able to learn more effectively in buildings that work. I'm super excited about both CCMS and Washington. I'm also really excited about the tech opportunities that we have, our blended learning. I'm wondering if some schools might need some more electrical capacity, because we will have so many of those machines to charge and plug in, and that was sort of a challenge for us when we incorporated that over at CES when I was principal there. So perhaps some minor details with just technology and keeping up with all of the new tech stuff coming down the road.
Okay. Bob? Bob?
You were speaking of the crack in the wall. Someone told me, a teacher told me once, right as we moved here, that when they were able to stuff a fifth grader in and plug that wall up, that the building needed to be replaced. I thought that was kind of interesting. I never saw it. I've never had a tour of the facilities, so I don't know. I do see a lot of good things being done, new buildings, and kids take a little more pride in a newer building than do an older building. So it's important to have updated equipment, and your facilities need to be safe to create a safe environment. So that's extremely important. And it's really good for the teachers. I don't go to an old rundown building to go to school every day. I have a nice new building. I want to take care of it. And the kids see that as well. It just generates a lot of pride.
Okay. Michael?
I think one of the things that I'd like to see, and I am seeing it right now, is the schools are becoming safer. You can't go into the school now, just walk in. You've got to be buzzed in by somebody. And that I think is wonderful. And I think with the new schools, it will be even more enhanced. I would love to see more SROs go into the schools and be part of the school system. I know that we had some safety resource officers in the school system when I was on the board, but we have more now. I'd like to see even more. When you talk about what schools were like, in 1972, I had 24 first graders, and they had to sit on donated carpet squares for story time because there wasn't enough money to put carpet into the classrooms. And don't like to see that kind of thing happening now. And I think we're really on the upward trend of making the schools safer and more technologically oriented so that we can meet the future and work with what we will be having to work with. All the kids now, our goal is to get them a Chromebook by, I think, the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. And at McKinley School, they already have them from K up to 5.
Wow. Robin?
So thanks to community support and partnering with the best grant process in the state, we have been able to build one completely new building and renovate a historical building, the old middle school. And we also have the new Harrison School and some other new and improved buildings in the district. I think the next two that we may need to look at in terms of perhaps updating some technology to allow us to do more things with computers and smart boards and those sorts of things might be McKinley and Lincoln. They're certainly structurally sound, but they may need some updating to allow us to do more technological kinds of things. To piggyback on Mike's, I do think we've done a really good job with security, with the resources that we have, and there may be some more things that we could do along that line, but I think we're doing really, really well in a district this size with the resources. So.
Okay. And Mary Pat?
I'm not familiar with a lot of the shape of the schools, but I do know that the use of the BEST grant that the school district is taking advantage of is great. 30 cents on the dollar is all they're paying, and I think that that's a great use of resources.
Okay. How would you determine your budget priorities, Mary Pat?
Well, from what I understand, the lion's share, of course, is on salaries. I believe it's at least 80%. So I'm sorry. There needs to be, I think, we need to look at the curriculum, the textbooks that we're using, the facilities, what needs to be done in the classrooms yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just listening, but
Oh.
Was there anything that came to the surface as what your first priority would be for the budget?
No, I think as a new school board member, I would really need to delve into that more.
Okay.
Because not having been on the school board before, I think I need to get a good understanding of where we've been in order to figure out where we need to go.
Okay, thank you. Robin, what's your first priority for the budget?
Probably my first priority with the implementation of the one-to-one devices, putting the Chromebooks, which for those of you that are unfamiliar with that, it's like an iPad. So with the implementation of that, I think it's really important that we make sure that our software that teaches the core curriculum is updated to be compatible with that. And the textbooks of old, the thick things that you would buy a classroom full of and you'd keep them for years, it's in the past. So we need to be, I think, prudent with our expenditures on the new stuff, because a lot of it comes with annual subscriptions, and so that's a whole new complex bailiwick. So I think that would probably be, because if we're going to put those in the hands of kids, I think we need to make sure that we invest in the proper curriculum.
Okay. Michael?
Would you restate what you said earlier, please?
How would you determine your budget priorities? So what rises to the top that the budget needs to a little bit of an adjustment? Or where do you feel your passion is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't paying attention, I just was going to come at it from a different angle. I, having served on the board, saw our budget go down by 20%. And we had to prioritize dramatically to keep as much of the cuts out of the classroom as we could. My priority now, budgetary-wise, would be to implement the technology that we can and also make sure, as Robin said, the software is up to date. And one of the things that I'm amazed at is the kids know so much. So we need to monitor what they're learning and on the technology part of it. One of the things that I also would like to say is we constantly work with our staff to try and make it better for them. And for the first time in 6 years, the board was able to give them an actual raise and a step increase and pay for their insurance. That's where my priority would be, to keep these people in the loop, work with them, and also make sure the technology is up to date and the kids know how to use it.
I know that a lot of police officers are leaving the local Fremont County and heading to the Front Range because of pay. Are we suffering with that and with the teachers as well, Bob?
You always suffer with teacher salaries. Again, that's a bulk of your budget. Next thing is what's best for kids, and then staff development is really important to keep teachers abreast of modern updates and those sort of things. But teacher salary has got to be right there, and the benefits. You bring people here, when you get them here, you can't keep them if this next school district over there is $1,000 more on their base. So staff development, teacher salaries, that's really important.
You bet.
And then what we do for kids.
So share with us what your budget priority would be. Would it be, I kind of convoluted the
I beat around the
question
bush a
there.
little bit, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, I did. Okay, well, my priority would be whatever is good for kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my budget's always started.
Okay.
I knew I had to pay the teachers X number of dollars, but the next priority was what's good for kids.
Okay. Beth?
Technology is definitely important, and keeping up with all of the latest technology for our kids is paramount. What's even more important is that we have quality teachers in our classrooms and that we can retain those quality teachers. Consistency, whenever you have teacher turnover, it's very difficult for new teachers to take in everything that we're doing. And it takes a good 3 years for teachers to really get in a groove and really understand the expectations of the district and the qualities and skills and traits that we want kids to embody. And so keeping a quality teacher in a classroom and retaining quality teachers here in Canyon City is the most important thing that I think, and not just teachers, but staff. And in my mind, every staff person that works with kids in a school is a teacher. We teach them in one way or another, all of us.
Okay.
And so I would say continue to keep the bulk of the budget and the priority of the budget on hiring quality teachers, quality staff.
All right. Mary Beth, have you received any donations or endorsements from any groups? And if so, what groups?
I have not. I've accepted donations from individuals.
Okay. Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. All right. Robin?
I accepted some
Here we go.
a donation from an individual.
We can't hear you, Robin. Yeah.
I have some friends that are very supportive, and I have accepted some donations from the contributions to the campaign.
Great. Okay. Michael?
No, I have not. The signs you see around town, I paid for and put together with my fifth grade granddaughter and went out into the community and asked people, can I put my sign on your business or on your lawn? Or if I knew people who wanted a sign through social networking, I was asked, or through some personal friends or people that wanted one that I came across, and the answer is no. What I spent of my own money.
All right. Bob?
No, I have not received any money from anybody, but if you want to give me some money, I'll be happy to pay it. I'm not going to use it in a campaign, but
Yeah? All right. And Beth?
I took the Mike Neer approach. Just ordered signs and asked folks if I could put them up in their yards. And I guess the endorsements come from folks that I see that I know or I've been in contact with through my career here in town. And just the folks that I talk to are very supportive, and so I'm thankful for that.
Okay. How do we balance the need to provide a quality education and then listen to your local taxpayers and the burden that they, and maybe burden's not the right word, but definitely the taxpayers are paying the way. And so do you see where you could make a difference in that, Beth?
I think it goes back to that intertwining of schools and community. I have this philosophy, if you're not growing, you're dying. And our community, if it's not growing, it's dying. And the best way to get our community to grow is to make sure that we're investing in our kids. Our kids are our future. And they're worth every investment that we put into them, because they're the ones who will be taking care of us. They're the ones who will be contributing to our community, or they'll be going somewhere else to contribute. I don't want that. Recently, some kids that I've had in the past have come back to Canon City and have begun to appreciate living here and being here, and are big contributors now in our community rejuvenation. And to me, that is, it's worth the tax money that we pay. And I'd also like to say there are other communities who, if you want to take a look on the CDE website, they have a financial transparency page, and they have some great pie graphs. There are some communities who fund 83% of their school. Their school funding comes 83% from the local community, not from the state. Ours is about 33%.
From local or state?
From local.
From local.
We fund 33% of our funding.
Okay.
And so take a look go on CDE and look at that financial transparency site, and you will see many other communities are investing in their youth. And I'm glad that we are now too.
Do you think we're adequately funded to meet all the government mandates, achieve its mission, and to attract high qualified employees?
We're never adequately funded.
Okay. All right.
There are so many mandates that come from the state that are unfunded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, to you, Bob, the original question.
being a retirement community, it's pretty hard to sell things to people in the community that are not really vested, as in having kids in school and that sort of thing. So it's very difficult to sell that. So you'd be real careful about how you go about asking community for support. You can talk to the people about saying, this is for the kids. So I've already raised my kids. I'm gonna raise somebody else's kids. That's what I heard all the time as a superintendent. Well, we have to be very careful about how we do this. People will support it if you go about it right. If you don't force it on them. Like we're gonna pass a bond issue, float a bond issue, or we want a half-cent sales tax. Once you get the half-cent sales tax, retired people say, it's never going away. It's always going to be there. So you have to be very careful about doing that. You have to get out and be visible in the community if you're part of the schools. And make those people understand, try to make them understand why it is needed. And as Beth says, for community growth.
All right. Michael?
I think that Canyon City is fortunate in that if you look at the comparable tax burden from Cañon City voters and Fremont County voters as opposed to, say, Denver or some other entity. We don't have the huge property tax they do. We do have a high sales tax. And what's happened is Cañon City and Fremont County and the Sheriff's Department and several others have gone that route. Well, you spend the money you have, you do it with transparency, you do it through good communication, you do it through community service, involving the community in as many ways as you can. So many good programs are going on that use school facilities, and that's a partnership that you need to build on. So yes, I do think that there are burdens for some community members because we're not a rich community, we're not a wealthy community, and we're not well-funded. We're at the bottom of the J-curve in Colorado state funding. And so we receive about 95% of every 100% of dollars that are given by the state because of the way the J-curve works. And they involve a myriad of different things in figuring out the funding level. So our per pupil funding is lower. And that's what people need to understand. But yes, working with the community, involving them, getting them opportunities to use our facilities. I think all of that's important. Transparency and friendship and community are so vital.
Thank you. Robin?
You know, it's really difficult to be this far down the line when the people preceding me say really great things. So to piggyback on all of that, I think it's important to be fiscally prudent and to be a good steward of taxpayer money. And I think that we need to prioritize the spending, and I do firmly believe in attracting and retaining quality educators. And I think through the Civic Canopy process, we've involved all the community stakeholders and leaders from the fire department to the police department to healthcare, and we're all on board, and we're all on the same page in terms of how do we keep the community vibrant, how do we attract educators, how do we keep good employees in healthcare and all those sorts of things. So, you know, in the district, we're very conservative with our spending. We have great priorities. We keep in mind that we need fund balances for rainy days. So as Mike said, it's really important to be transparent with community members, and I believe we are. And our school board meetings are open to the public. People can come at any time and ask questions, and so I think we're very fiscally prudent with the meager resources that it sometimes feels like we have.
Okay. And Mary Pat?
Yeah, I met with Buddy Lambrecht, who's the Director of Business Services at the school district, specifically to get an understanding of school funding, you know, where the money comes from, where it's going. We talked about the J-curve and how that has really affected school funding since, I believe, 2009, which is when it came into effect. But I think given that, the school board should always be fiscally minded, and we need to find innovative ways to stretch the money that we have and make good decisions about what we do with our money.
Okay. You each have 2 minutes to sell us on why we should vote for you. So, and that will conclude our forum. So, please remain after the forum's over and the public can ask individual questions. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being ladies and gentlemen. So, Mary Pat, tell us why we vote for you. Check the box.
Well, you should vote for me because I'm not an educator. I come in with a fresh perspective, the perspective of a parent, someone who has not been entrenched in education, and I'm going in with no preconceived notions of, well, we've always done it this way. I am much more likely to bring fresh ideas to the table, And like I said, I mean, it's obvious. I have not been involved in education, and I believe that's a good thing. I'm willing to work hard, to learn what I need to do, to listen, but vote for me because I'm a parent.
Thank you. Robin?
I feel like I bring a fairly unique skill set to the table. I have a finance background. I worked in post-secondary educational environments, Texas A&M, University of Houston, so I understand state funding, federal funding, all of those sorts of things. I have a master's in education, and I have taught in all sorts of different educational environments in the community. I taught business, statistics, accounting, and math at PCC. I've also held various accounting positions here in town, so I also have a well-rounded perspective in terms of fiscal prudence. I have been on the board for a year, so I understand what's going on not only locally, but in state and national educational trends. I am also a parent. I had kids start here in the district at second grade and kindergarten, and they're back. They finished college and decided that this was the community they wanted to call home. So I have a very well-rounded perspective, not only as an educator, but also a business owner. I'm a realtor in town. So I think I bring a lot to the table, and it's about the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity for letting us speak, because in other board elections, we haven't had this. So thank you so much, and thank you folks out there that are reporting on this. I do appreciate this. I think people should vote for me because I'm experienced. And that may make me old, but I'm not old in ideas. I'm new in ideas. I see what's going on every day in the elementary schools because I'm in them every day. And I think the important thing is to know what's working, what's not working, what are the people feeling. We need to honor the people that work for us, and we need to honor the community. I love Canon City, and I want to make our school system even better. And we can do that by saying to these people who are out there doing yeoman work every day, whether it's a crossing guard or the kitchen staff or the para, these support professionals that work for us and are certified people are incredible. And that's why I think I can do the job. I've done it before. I think I did a good job. I can learn more. I listen better than I used to. I don't have prejudicial opinions when something comes along. I listen, and I work well with superintendents. I worked well with George. I worked well with Robin, and I think I can do a pretty good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Bob?
If you don't vote for me to be on Board of Education, my wife's gonna make me a real job. I think good judgment is a result of experience, and I've had 30 years of it. I want to contribute to kids. I always want to be part of a winner, and I watched this board work for the last couple of months, and well, that means if I got on the board, I wouldn't really have to work much because they've already done a lot of the work. I like to be part of things that are really going well. I think these things are going very well, and I'd really like to be a part of it. And I'm not going to be angry if I'm not a board member. I'd be angry if you made me the superintendent, because I don't want to do that again. But I would like to serve the kids in any way I could, whether it's a board member or volunteer or whatever. I'm a hard worker. When I was a superintendent, I went to work at 3 in the morning before the teachers got there, so I could go through the buildings. And then I wouldn't have to be bothered with doing that during the day. I could spend my time with the teachers and the kids. So that's what I do. And that's why I think I would be an asset to the board, maybe not to you, but I think I'd be an asset because I'm just kid-oriented. I'm still a kid. An old kid, but I'm still a kid.
Thank you, Bob. And Beth?
If you don't vote for me to be on Board of Education, my wife's gonna make me a real job. I
I think I would be an asset to the board for several reasons. One is my investment in the community, and the connection between the community and schools is so strong here. And additionally, my experience teaching here, being a principal here, being the coordinator of the gifted ed program, I have experience with kids all the way from K through 12th grade. So I bring that experience from a more recent perspective, although I did love Mr. Neer as a teacher when he taught 1st and 2nd grade. I also believe in the core 4 beliefs that the school district has put in place. I believe in educating the whole child. You can't separate social, emotional, and academic needs. We're whole people, and we need to educate whole kids. I'm excited about the growth, and I feel like I'm a risk taker, but a calculated risk taker. And I believe I'm forward thinking. I love visioning and planning, and I love that all of that work goes into bringing up wonderful kids. There are two Latin meanings for the word education. One of them means to mold or to train, and that can come from the outside. The other means to draw out. And so it's so important that we're offering kids from the outside these opportunities, but we're also helping them to discover who they are and what they're good at, and that there is this world waiting for the exact unique gifts that they have to offer. And what a great world it would be if every kid could contribute and make a difference.
All right.
Thanks.
We have 5 great candidates. It's up to you. Thank you very much, and that concludes our forum.
Thanks, Hutch.
You